There's been a second Sonic Frontiers Update 3 leak.
Oh, shit!
Now, disclaimer before we jump in, but the leaks I'm covering today are not story related and are only pertaining to the island's gameplay changes and challenges mentioned in the Final Horizon teaser and by Morio Kishimoto, the game's director, on Twitter. There will be nothing referenced from the leaked dialogue or script in this video. So with that, I'm not really sure if I'd quite classify this as a spoiler, since again, they're of gameplay and not of a boss, story, or anything we haven't officially heard of yet. However, if you do want to go in completely unaware of any changes to the Starfall Island, you've been warned. So, world's most beloved Sonic tuber, TV Guide, has broken the seal and released a handful of shorts showing off a new, never-before-seen Sonic Frontiers Final Horizon gameplay leak. However, once I saw TV Guide broke the seal, I reached out to an anonymous Sonic tuber homie and now have even more of the leaks than what TV Guide posted himself, and in full quality. I also spoke to a handful of data miners and modders that gave me a near-perfect understanding of how these images are going to play into the changes on the 4th and 5th island, and oh boy, this looks like it's genuinely going to be really fun. Now, for full transparency, I haven't seen any of these previously when I made the other video on the leaks, as all my data miner friends refused to give me any assets, something I not only expected, but respected, since that's their choice, and it's not like I'm gonna jump them for the files. However, now that I got my grubby little paws on these quote-unquote leaks, I mean, technically it's a data mine, I have a lot more excitement for this update. And these aren't just additions to the base game, but actual changes too. So many so that I actually think Frontiers might be due for a Redux review from the big players in the games industry. Plus, I also want to touch on the supposed leaked footage of the new playable characters in-game, which I think it's very important to go over the potential validity of this and to set the record straight. A lot to cover today, but first, do your job. I made the video, I spent a bajillion hours editing it, and you're gonna double check your subs because YouTube do be unsubbing, and set the bell to all notifications because, let's be real, Sonic Show doesn't miss. Now, with that aside, let's get into it. So there's a few angles I want to tackle this from, ending with debunking the fake leaks going around that many of you have likely already seen. But when it comes to the island changes, the biggest and most significant I've seen is on the 4th island, Rhea? Is that how you pronounce it? So instead of just failing it with more of the challenges like in the rest of the game, they are taking an entirely new approach to this island in particular. And while it might still get some new challenges added, that's by far the least significant new thing here. Now, I have 7 new pictures here, and for context of what these are, one of the biggest changes Frontiers is making is the 4 towers on Rhea have been completely overhauled. Also, edit, I keep saying Rhea in the 4th island. That's my B. They basically remade these towers in a similar way, but it's on the 5th island. And there is only 4 of them, so that part I did get right. I just kept accidentally saying Rhea instead of Arenos, like an idiot. So keep that in mind going forward. Each one now has an internal dungeon room that features a boss and enemies for you to fight. The best part is there's actually a bunch of insane gameplay rewards for beating this, which we'll talk about right after covering the new pictures. Now, in each of the 4 towers, the new boss for each one will apparently be an alternate variation of one of the titans we fought earlier. Although what does confuse me is how he goes supersonic for each boss if he's not got the emeralds. But then again, for all we know, maybe he only has to get them once and has them through all the 4 bosses. It also isn't clear what changes they're going to be making to the 5th island arenas, or if they'll find a way to put these rooms there instead. Which, edit, that's quite literally exactly what they did. If they are going to make these 4 tower bosses that build up to an epic final boss, then it wouldn't make sense to place it before the 5th island unless it's a change to New Game Plus. So my personal theory seeing all this is that after beating the main game's ending, there's a cutscene and then you go back to Island 4, which has been changed, and from there you fight the 4 titans and then you get initiated into the cutscene for the 5th all-new Mega Titan from the teaser. So, with that important context, let's look at the first of 7 images from these dungeon rooms. Then we can get a bit more into the meaning of these rooms after. Now, first, we see Sonic in this room with red pillars, and this is gameplay from in-game loaded in. However, since this is made up of just the unfinished assets left in Update 2, it's likely missing a lot of effects and objects inside, since we don't see any sort of boss, but we do see an empty center of the room, likely where one would be. Next, we see a bunch of Cyclone enemies here, which ties directly into the purpose and pacing of these rooms. They might even have an element of timed leaderboards and score rankings, but that part's not confirmed right now. We also don't know if it's these rooms, the whole story, or just the new DLC section that allows you to play as the multiple characters. If not, it's still gonna be Sonic throughout the whole game just until you get into the new part, but if so, which is best case scenario, you'll be able to play through all 5 islands with the new characters. But when it comes to this room, with there being much more enemies here, assumedly you have to clear these out either before or during the boss battle. So far, the current understanding understanding is that you'll seemingly be able to go back and play as everyone across all the islands, and with the intention of this entire new mode likely being designed as a way to specifically practice with each character's new combat mechanics, seemingly the other characters will be used here, especially with it being new. There's nothing that indicates this will be Sonic only, so if they didn't include the new characters, it'd be more weird that this mode basically serves as combat practice, but it's only restricted to Sonic, who frankly we are very practiced in combat with, especially considering in the open world you have to run around and search after defeating each enemy, which really is a grind, whereas here they're all ready and lined up to get walloped by Sonic. Why did I say walloped? That's like a 1940s phrase. Next, we see another gameplay image, this one of Sonic running through this red corridor, and he's even wearing the Corone shoes, which is even more evidence that this is legit and in-game. The validity of these images is something I've seen a couple of people speculate on, but I just want to make it clear, these images are almost certainly legit, and this is entirely unrelated. But surprisingly, Corone might have the single-handedly best VTuber song of all time, which is a low bar since most are pretty bad. But this song is like, it doesn't deserve to be this good. Next, we see a bunch of shell enemies lying around, which seems a bit odd for a room with a boss fight, unless again, it's before it or during it, but it does appear there will be a variety of different enemies such as towers, shells, and etc., which, since we are seeing a different iteration of the 4 rooms with this here, it all only makes me more convinced that these enemies will somehow play into the boss fight. It's a very common game mechanic to give you smaller enemies to deal with to get in your way of the boss, so it is very possible there will be enemies for that exact purpose. It's even possible you don't fight these bosses as Super Sonic, which would be a bit weird, but still plausible, especially with the theory from data miners that defeating each variant of the bosses gives you a small power that you combine at the end for the new Super Sonic form. But we go into that in its own section in a bit. For now, we next see the red room again, but now it's filled with banger enemies. One thing that works in the favor of these being 4 unique rooms is the significant difference in the floor and some of the unfinished textures lying around. And while these rooms are obviously very similarly themed, if you pay close attention, you'll notice one is tiled and the other one has this sci-fi exposed wiring metal floor texture, so there are subtle differences in these rooms. Plus, with the 4 towers and the 4 titans and frontiers, it kind of makes sense. Like, it's a real no-brainer. It just makes me wonder if maybe they might just move Arenos to the 4th spot and save this newly updated Rhea for last, or this might be added post the current ending as a little bonus section. One thing that I have to admit that I think is very possible, as the bosses themselves aren't anywhere to be seen in the data mine itself, is that the sources are incorrect on the part about the bosses here. While I've heard it from enough credible people at this point, and I am reasonably confident it's all accurate, we have to take anything we don't have empirical evidence for as unconfirmed. Until more evidence surfaces from this theory, it's just that. It's a theory, it's a rumor, don't buy too far into that part.
Which, after editing, having checked with even more people and seen some of these resources for myself, yeah, this leak is real. There will be 4 bosses and then a big surprise boss.
You do have to keep in mind, the files in this quote-unquote leak is what previously, based on Kishimoto's tweets, we think was intentionally left in the second update to build hype. Just like the Spin Dash in Update 1, it's very possible we got these empty dungeon rooms as a tiny teaser for what to expect in the final horizon. And I reiterate that because it's important to note that this is only a fraction of the finished update and is in an extremely unfinished state when pictured here. Now, these next 2 show off the stage itself a little more, but only showing more or less of the same. One thing to note is the lights on the floor are actually reflections from lights that are out of sight on the ceiling, and that's a graphic error from the data miners reproducing this with the unfinished assets. So that will almost certainly be fixed in the final release and look way better. Now, let's get into the new super form and how it ties into this leak. So upon completing all 4 of these rooms, you'll be given the ultimate reward. And this happy ending is going to be way better than any other happy ending you would have been given. So I mentioned this earlier, but supposedly defeating each Guardian boss gives you some new power, and by the end of completing the 4 towers, or maybe this is later in the game depending how they repace Island 5, regardless, once you beat these 4 rooms, you'll then go on to fight the boss we see in the teaser in this epic fight, also likely featuring a return from Kellen Quinn or someone new, maybe Vic from Pierce the Veil or Ollie from Beam Me the Horizon. Regardless, what I'm most interested in is the part when you combine all the powers to make the blue-eyed Sonic form from the teaser trailer. This is likely the response to no Hypersonic coming back, and maybe now this will be seen as the 3rd ultra rare tier that's above Supersonic, allowing Supersonic to appear more than just the ending 5 minutes of a game, something fans universally loved about Frontiers. However, to be clear, that part about the powers was just told to me and isn't in the pictures, so I'm not 100% on the powers thing until I see proof of that myself.
Which edit, after doing exactly that and seeing proof of myself, I can safely say I'm a believer.
Believe it! Submit.
However, the sources giving me this are very reputable. What I do know, and we do actually have multiple pieces of proof on, is that this is where the new ending boss battle will be. Now, what it is, I don't want to spoil, and to be honest, I barely know from reading the subtitles dialogue. Something that I think just confused everyone more, but I know this fight is going to be flippin' sweet. Now, next I want to touch an important topic that I'm seeing fly under everyone's radar, which is the quote-unquote ultra legit gameplay of the new playable characters in the update. Now, I showed a few seconds of the Amy footage, which I made super clear, stating, but what's new is we actually have some gameplay of Amy that a modder made by taking the model files we got and incorporating it into the base game of Frontiers. Now, unfortunately, she doesn't do anything other than run around a bit. I don't even think they were able to get any of the animations to work in there, but it does at least give us an idea of how Amy will look and move in Update 3. However, with how much is coming out right now, I've seen some stoop low enough to take advantage of the misconception that this is actual gameplay from Update 3, which we of course know it's not. And this also goes beyond Amy and into other characters, but for all of them, they're just mods trying to change little aspects to appear more like the actual playable character, when in reality, it's just Sonic with a skin and a couple swapped animations. Now, I think it's fine under the context of exactly what they are, and I'm obviously not trying to shame anyone who made these mods, as I think that's really cool. The only thing I want to address is correcting the people trying to pass these off as legit. No, Brody, you didn't get some cool epic exclusive gameplay. A modder just literally put Tails over Sonic. You know what? Here's Rayman over Sonic. Update 3, Rayman confirmed.
Submit. Your reckless actions endanger the world.
Care to explain how saving my friends is a bad thing?
With that, like the video if you liked, double check your subs, join my Discord. I've quit Twitter, so this is literally the only place I'm engaging now. I always say follow the Twitter, but honestly, don't even bother. Buy a membership if you're rich, buy a friend one if you're richer, and more videos soon. I'm feeling pretty good. Lots of love and peace. Peace!
Cause I ain't back, yeah, I'm never better. Sonic show back and I've never been better. Little raccoon and he's getting cheddar. Little raccoon that made me so cheddar. I'm whipping leaves, yeah, I'm getting lettuce. I'm whipping leaves and I'm